Alright, so 2 years later, again, if you didn't know about this material thing, you would assume that Nathan Hale was in a coma for 2 years.
The following Resistance 2 Raw takes place 2 years later.
Yeah, and Dr. Manikov has done something to Nate. If you remember, Hale was already technically being infected by the Chimera virus, but he survived with really no consequences whatsoever. So Manikov deemed it, useful for the Sentinel program, which is a program essentially that's there to augment a bunch of other humans in order to be a sort of a task force, ideally, to go against the Chimera.
Also, oh no! He'll turn out like Shepard. Shepard's dead?
Oh no, it's the older brother of that guy from Half-Life 2.
And yeah, we're in San Francisco base now.
I'll finish up here.
Also, what are you talking about, Dwibs? The older brother turns out to be the star of Hunt Down the Freeman.
Was a success.
Is this the big... Huh. So, I get... Did Phantom Pain take from this?
Possibly. It does.
Yes, Sergeant.
Yeah,
This is
no.
literally how Phantom Pain starts.
The guy on the left, I think he's called Hawthorne. He's gonna be one of your bodies. Oh, yeah, he's gonna be one of your bodies.
Given that Phantom Pain does have...
Yeah, the Doctor even looks kind of the same.
Given that Phantom Pain does have a few first-person sequences to give you that point of view, I wouldn't be surprised if Kojima did take some inspiration. Tio,
Hey, look at that! A sequence where I had to follow an NPC, but I can move normally!
cool.
Riveting.
Congratulations,
hey.
Insomniac.
Hey, where are you going?
Get me a visual on Capelli. Verify containment at B-level.
We just lost his visual, sir. Corporal, this is command. Do you have containment on B-level?
Negative, command. We've reached one of the lower levels, but we haven't located the source.
We read you, Echo 3. Take your team up to the surface and get those batteries out. I'll send Hale to plug the leak. Com 2, get them some support and initiate lockdown.
Let's
B-level
get your gear on, Lieutenant.
Hale, you're gonna move up floor by floor and clean them out. We've got enough air to last 2 days.
Major, there's something outside the glass.
The base is under attack, including by an aquatic Chimera, which means our proper first level is essentially about these, probably the San Francisco base, to escape and making sure everything is okay, at least when men and objects are evacuated.
Good to know nothing can go wrong. So, first off, do we ever properly in-game learn more about SRPA, the guys who have taken us in, or is that also more so to the
technically yes, but it's via the data log, system, the entries that I also showcased in the first game. But like I said in that one, the one in these games reaches level of wall text and are presented in such a way that they're not really being really compelling to read, so I'll basically do the duty and tell it to you during the gameplay.
So we have a Quantum Break situation on our hands. Gotcha.
So,
in a sense, kinda. I argue it's a bit better than Quantum Break, but it's a step down compared to the first game. If you remember, the first game were presented kind of like war reports, almost as if they were written on paper and everything. But in here, they are going in this more static kind of way, which is not as appealing. There's again, it's a silly bit of thing called presentation, but it makes them more appealing. And don't get me wrong, the stuff that they say is informative. It's just that, I wish there was a better way to read it. For a normal playthrough, I don't have a problem. But for a commentary purposes, no, I don't think it's really worth the case.
I will say this, I find it weird that they would make a big deal about this new organization that took us in to the point where it's a big hook for a stinger, but then not really tell us much about them,
Also, there's something else I haven't mentioned, but first, Pedro, go on.
First off, somewhere in this facility, there's Jill Nabat confused about which level is which, probably.
And on another level, there's a confused venom snake scouring and crawling on the ground.
Yeah. This is one of your bodies, Hawthorne, too.
Affirmative, Hawthorne. Let's go.
Go on, Pedro.
No. If it's at the very least informative, then that's already better than Quantum Break, because remember, Quantum Break has an entire screenplay subplot in those fucking dialogues that has nothing to do with anything. It's just a waste of your. It's not even funny or charming. It's just stupid.
But tell me,
No.
was the guy able to get his masterpiece made?
And more importantly, who cares?
Exactly. I was about to say that. Yeah, as Tail would say, who cares? I don't give a rat's ass about your fucking screenplay.
We need to actually find out have a proper quest and find out actually who asked. But no, there's actually one thing that I forgot to mention from the previous part. Actually, not from the previous part, but that I probably should have in the previous part. See, there's the thing. In order to hype up the second title, Insomniac did also something else that was, relatively common at the time, and had something like 3 or 4 separate ARG websites that I don't think they're even active anymore these days. Mm-hmm. But basically, they offered you some sort of minigame, as in find a cluster of data and click there in order to unlock like a page. And they served to, unlock dossier files about the SERP organization and some particular members about, Project Abraham. As far as I know, that stuff is included in this game, just in a different, phrased in a different way for the data that you collect. So technically, it's roughly the same thing. But once again, the external campaign that was done for this game is actually quite a lot more than I expected, because as I mentioned in the previous part, and now I remember, the first Infamous had a time coming from DC Comics that served to bridge the gap between 1 and 2, and it kind of tells what happened to one of the characters involved in that. But first let me read the weapon about the Far Eye, which also returns. The weapon of choice for elite snipers team were Wild, the L23 Chambers, a .303 MK10 round with a muzzle velocity of 3,400 feet per second. Once used exclusively by the British Royal Marines, the United States military recently acquired its specs thanks to an intelligence sharing program spearheaded by President McCauley in 1952. Press L1 to use the scope, up and down adjust the magnification, press R2 to trigger focus mode. This activates a special attachment designed to accelerate neural activity with tailored electromagnetic pulses. This frequently creates the perception among snipers that time is slowed while in focus mode.
Interesting.
Classic enough. Also, our grenades, where it also says the number 60 fragmentation grenade is standard issue anti-personnel munition used by Sentinel team, primarily due to its lightweight and increased blast radius. A dual-plated shell allows the grenade to bounce off hard surfaces without misfiring, thus making it one of the most dependable explosives in the US military. The number 60 air fuel grenade has been issued for combating Chimera in tight spaces commonly found in urban conflicts. The grenade will adhere to almost any surface, biological or otherwise, and deploy a cloud frame or vapor. Once released, the cloud is ignited, creating a massive explosion. The resulting heat and pressure wave will cause vast injuries to anyone caught within the blast radius. With their reliance on external cooling systems, Chimera is especially susceptible. Again, some of these descriptions are almost, not lifted, but almost similar to one of the first game at the very least.
You weren't kidding about the presentation, though. Like, the inkling I get from this game is 2 steps forward, but 1 step back. Like, some of the gameplay seems to have been improved, although they degraded us down to a 2-weapon system. The visuals have improved, but the presentation in regards to, at the very least, the menu is noticeably degraded. Not the worst thing, but still bit of an eyebrow raiser.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, the gameplay is technically functional, but because of the limitation imposed, it genuinely is a step down. Because like I said, a lot of games at the time became victim of this, particularly also Duke Nukem Forever and Bioshock Infinite, which gave you this absurd restriction that had really no place to be there. At the very least, Bioshock Infinite still allow you to have an health bar and the equivalent of health kit, because it was supposed to be in some capacity an immersive sim, but still get the limitation. But Duke Nukem Forever was also one of the most egregious. The PC version, from what I remember, apparently had a patch later on that allows you to carry 4 weapons at a time, which is still not much, but at least it's an improvement. But still, again, these curse afflicted, shooters for quite a while, unfortunately, and I really don't understand why they couldn't try to actually give a bit of a difference between, single player and multiplayer.
Assuming they were
Anyway,
chasing the Call of
I think
Duty money.
we're
Oh,
for the time being we're closing this. There you go. We should be good to go.
I find it interesting. Well, at least from what I'm seeing so far, it doesn't seem like unlike in Quantum Break, there's no audio logs that were recorded by someone who sounds bored out of their freaking.
No, we're
skull
gonna
reading
get
them.
we're gonna get the audio logs in the third game, and the quality you'll be able to
Oh.
judge for on your own. Yeah, again, this is an aquatic form of Chimera, which means we gotta go.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
a water-based one.
Hawthorne, come in. Has the target been neutralized? Negative. That's a negative. Target is still active. Copy that.
Which also gives the implication that you might have feared from the beginning. The Chimera have finally reached American soil, thanks to be darkened. We will see exactly how they did it. Anyway, the Hedgehog grenade is a Chimera anti-personnel ammunition. Thrown like an ordinary hand grenade, it springs up upon landing and expands into a spine cluster. At its quote-unquote kill height, the Hedgehog fires spines in all directions with enough force to ping targets against nearby walls. The effect is especially deadly in confined quarters.
I'm guessing the idea is that once they finally got pushed out of Britain, they decided to go to the source of major troubles.
For
America
reference,
providing
because
support.
for reference, Retribution is supposed to take place between the first game and this, and it takes place in France. So we will see actually what happens there eventually. But the general story is that, again, the cameras have been expanding, and we will see actually they've been trying to actually get to America for a while. They've been trying to do in Alaska, with Alaska in the comic, but again, as mentioned there, they actually were thwarted by one of your team members. Anyway, for the time... But we will see actually what happens. For the time being, this section functions as a sort of a stealth section, because now Blake is going to tell you, if I recall correctly, to follow precise instructions, because otherwise there are one-hit kill enemies roaming around. And yeah, the guy that is talking about is Joseph Capelli. He's actually one of the remaining team member from your squad, and he's the protagonist of the comic series. He's going to be fairly important for the story.
Neat. So, Retribution's the third and final game, right?
Nope. It's the spin-off done by Ben Studios.
Ah, okay. I was about to say it would kind of be awkward
The third title is called Resistance 3.
Okay, so the third title is the chronological end of a series still. Good.
Technically speaking, yes. There is also another spin-off that we won't probably see on that was done for the PlayStation Vita, called Burning Skies, that actually details the actual arrival of the Chimera in America from the perspective of, I think, a New Yorker. I think, but I haven't seen much about it. And again, because it's stuck on the Vita, and I tried to check, different options, but it seems that unless I use a special composite cable to record, I'm not going to really get that many results or any decent results. So no, it's not really worth it. Trust me.
Alas.
I really wish Sony has actually quite a couple of titles on the PS Vita that it has imported. I mean, first party wise, there is a Killzone game, a Resistance game, 2 Uncharted games. Technically, one is a car game, so it's a bit less important. But the Golden Abyss is actually there. There's the game that Keiji Inafune worked on. I forgot what it's called. Soul Sacrifice, I think. There's Freedom Wars, I think. Gravity Rush and non-Echochrome Escape Plan did manage to receive ports, thankfully. But again, my point is there is a lot of stuff that hasn't been imported yet, and so far they're not being majorly compatible. So unfortunately, it is a case of being stuck on a console that's not really supported anymore.
So, going back to something we were talking about earlier, Pedro mentioned how the intro sequence of this looks like it could have inspired some of the scenes from Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain. So, okay, while not many people talk about this series nowadays, would you say trajectory-wise this series could have been big enough that it might have inspired Kojima a bit?
I mean, potentially, I suppose. Keep in mind, like I said, back when it was released, it was very well known, basically among the life of the PS3. Remember, the first title was enough to actually carry the PS3 in its initial launch, so it has a place in PlayStation history. It even was referenced in
All
forgot
Stars
the name.
Battle Royale.
Not just that, Pedro. The game, the testing game for the DualSense that you recorded.
Oh, Astrobot?
Astrobot, yes.
Yes, Astro's Playroom.
Astro Playroom, yes. So again, it is still part of PlayStation history. They haven't really forgotten about it.
Oh yeah, like I acknowledge that.
Which I guess it's more than you can say from stuff like Wild Arms, but alas.
Yeah, like I acknowledge it as its place in history. It's just that, like a lot of shooters, it's like, not the most talked about. Like, I mean, okay.
Also, let me just mention briefly with this. You may notice that there is a new gimmick, swimming. However, a lot of bodies of water are stuff that you don't want to be in it because there are more aquatic-based Chimera, these adorable fellas. And if you cannot actually kill them, and if you actually get into the water and they reach you, it's an insta-kill. So you need to basically, every time there is platform that involves actually forcing you to actually go into the water, you have to be very quick and precise with your movements. Lovely. I do wonder if they took inspiration from the first Jack and Dexter with the fish nearby near the village. I wonder.
That would not surprise me. On the one hand, I get it.
Hell.
Man, you can't even attack them?
No, they cannot be killed. Again, probably in order to form an actual obstacle rather than anything.
I have mixed feelings on that. On the one hand, I suppose it does add a...
Some old FPS, like Rise of the Triads, did have this type of enemy that offered a physical obstacle that you could not just kill, So I do understand what they were coming from with this.
I do find it a bit jive that you can't even attack them from land. Like, not even kill them, but at least damage them and cause them to retreat, thus making at least water traversal a bit better for you.
Anyway, we found Malikov. For some reason, despite the NPC being closed, it still activated the voice clip as if it's communicating via radio to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Maybe he didn't feel like talking to you that day.
I don't really mind, but it is the kind of thing that the advancement of the hardware for the PS4 and PS5 allowed to circumvent by having, different clips that, overlay in case of the situation. Kind of like how, for example, games like Spider-Man on the PS4 or the Dead Space remake have that the characters speak depending on what, the level of health bar that you have.
Also, I recall this happening either earlier this playthrough or in the last game because, yeah,
oh, fuck.
I do find it weird.
Okay, new enemy type. This asshole, the equivalent of the heavy weapons guy. Only instead of actually a Gatling gun, this guy has an energy weapon. Otherwise functions the same. It's very tanky, and even the location-based damage can only get you so far. There you go. The best course of action is to use the bullseye tracker and then just pummel him. And again, because now the game is designed around you regenerating health, not only the enemy tend to dish a bit more damage, but you're basically forced into this cat and mouse tactic of, yeah, we do a lot of damage, retreat to a safe place, take cover, and you'll instantly regenerate that. Again, there is a story explanation for this. The Sentinel program allowed the people that are infected that are able to actually, survive the Chimera virus to actually, somatize that and have their own equivalent of regenerating health, kind of like the Chimera, just without, the cooling system. So at the very least, they bother to try to give a proper, explanation in story rather than just, saying that it's a thing that happens, But it's still, like he said, it's still not questionable, but contentious as a gameplay choice. I know that it has its own balance and everything, but I really just prefer having an health bar telling me how much do I have and having to manage myself. The health based on resources that I find. Like I said, I technically do not mind the removal of the armor value that was useful in the old FPS, but I get it that it's an extra resource that potentially has is more cumbersome these days. But the Elba really is an actual staple that I don't really think has place to go. There we go.
Whoa! Wow! I never saw a projectile that dances before it blows up.
That's the bullseye tracker, Dweebs. It's you might remember the fact that I mentioned while reading the description of the bullseye a particular technique, as in the tracker trap. It was a technique that people pioneered with the first game accidentally. Essentially, instead of actually aiming the tracker at a target, at a proper, moving target like a Chimera, you aim it at the ground. The tracker is still active and it absorbs the bullets, but an enemy that actually gets close by will be damaged by that as a result. You literally create an actual energy trap, by concentrating your fire there. It's actually quite ingenious, and again, it's a show good faith that Insomniac allowed that to become a feature, rather than what was not necessarily a glitch, but, just a thing that he not predicted. So that's actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
The trade-off is that the enemies now can use it against you, so whoops.
Yep. So, I know that the game definitely had attention, but what was the overall reception of this game upon its release?
Mixed. As usual, the multiplayer was actually praised enough, so, that one you don't really have to worry about. The adjustments of the single player were the things that, were the most contentious. As for how people receive the plot, I suggest you to wait until the end before I tell you anything, because, again, you'll need to have full context and, first exposure to it.
That's fair. But overall, from these games, I can see them as they're remembered, perhaps even fondly, but there's...
That's the thing. Again, then first let me get to the... First, let me get the weapon that Marikov told me to pick, the pulse... New Autoid, the pulse cannon.
I like how it looks like you're attaching weapons to other weapons.
Sadly, no. Originally designed by Dr. Howard Nash at Station Genesis, the weapon was engineered as a means of splitting rock with a powerful beams of ion energy. During its first live trial, miscalculation on Nash's part caused a massive blast that injured 36 military contractors. The cannon was repurposed as an offensive weapon and greenlit for active use in 1953. The MP-47 fires a focused long-shot distance energy beam with unparalleled stopping power. The secondary mode fires a powerful short-range concussive blast capable of shredding most biological enemies. To fire the energy beam, press R1. To fire a concussion blast, press R2. Not quite your BFG, it's very situational to boot, so I never particularly care about it, and because, like I said, you can only carry 2 weapons at a time, unless it's that situational, I totally don't carry it around.
How do you make a giant awesome gun situational?
Because it's mostly used for very big targets, like what we're about to get. You can tell that they were essentially, again, one thing we wanted to achieve compared to the previous game, more set pieces and potentially more boss fights, more spectacular, grandiose stuff. Like in this case, the Leviathan. In this case, you have to wait until the pulse cannon actually recharges and then fire the blasts.
So basically...
It's not that much, but it is something, admittedly.
Neat.
Go on.
Like I was saying, I can see how this series would be remembered, potentially even fondly, but not really a big demand to bring
I will mention that in a second, because I'm about to... okay,
what?
That was fair, I guess.
Oh, come on. How could you even see that enemy?
No, like I said, it's one of those in the water. I just dipped my toes in the water and instantly killed me. Now I'm gonna say this, actually. We have been confining this base for this entire first level, so we're about to get, actually, what is one of the highlights of the entire franchise in terms of presentation, so be prepared.
Okay, then.
Because now we're basically have to take the elevator to actually escape. Come on, Malikov. Move, Doc. All right, and behold, I have to admit, this is actually pretty cool.
Did we teleport into another dimension?
No, this is San Francisco. The Chimera, remember, San Francisco is on the west coast. The Chimeras built giant fucking ass spaceships to actually move from Russia throughout the entire Pacific Oceans to this.
But at least the bridge is intact.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Golden Gate Bridge survived. This isn't San Francisco.
Like he said, this is actually quite striking, and there is no wonder. I mean, when I played PlayStation Stars Battle Royale and I saw the Resistance stage, I was like, I wonder why they picked that. And yeah, now I can see why. This is perfect.
I could see
possibly
this.
one of the best imagery of the entire franchise. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually was used for one of the trailers or showcases. Because
I can tell.
This is how you sell a product.
I can tell that Zack Snyder ripped this off for Rebel Moon because it's just.
I can definitely see this being like possibly the definitive, like possibly the most definitive event in the entire series. Just seeing
it's more like to showcase that shit got real again. The Chimera have reached the American soil, and again, it's even more massive invasion than what happened in the UK. Like things are escalating, and there's no safe place anymore apparently,
And
unless you're Australia, I guess.
and technology-wise, this is a great showcase of what the PS3 can do and how wide its range.
I can't imagine it was achieved by having the thing that happens with the ships and everything being like an actual background stuff, like as in
Oh yeah, you can tell some are more
a green
painted.
screen equivalent, but it's achieved there very well, admittedly. Even again, it is pretty well, even as an effect. Let me use this now to answer because we're spending the rest of the part basically fighting here in San Francisco. Let me use this to answer what you were saying just now, Jova. See, here's the thing. For better or worse, Sony has this attitude that when it comes to actually jump from one generation of consoles to another and a range of IPs to another, the one that gets left behind tends to be forgotten very easily unless there's someone that tends to try to remind them about it. And unfortunately, it happened with this too. It's actually happening right now to Killzone, actually. Even if I haven't technically played them yet, I can actually, know people who actually did, who are kind of a bit sad with the fact that Killzone is barely acknowledged these days and its story is technically unfinished.
That's probably an even worse state. Like, okay, did Resistance at least get arguably a good
3
series
is conclusive.
Okay.
Well, okay, if it's good enough, you will have to judge it, but I can tell you that 3 is conclusive. Like I said, Insomniac wanted to make a 4th title, yes, but Sony basically told them, no, it's not really worth it, and it's probably why they instead went to do the Spider-Man games instead.
Well, again, like, I have yet to see 3, but at the very least, at least letting it end on a proper conclusive note is better than canning a series before it's reached its conclusive note. And again, for all I know, this could have just been a job to Insomniac. Not saying that they didn't put their heart into it or that they didn't enjoy doing it, but I mean, I guess I don't see them being as broken up about having to leave this behind. Again, at least they got to end it on a proper note, as opposed to cases like, well, per se, oh, the last one was bad, they wanted to try and make it better, but no, they can't. Or they legit did love doing it, and Sony just left it behind for no reason.
Like I even said, even the worst cases like Knack 2, as bad as the franchise has been, I really kind of want to see how it ends.
Yeah,
there's a morbid part of me that wants to know how a 3rd title would have been in terms of story.
I mean, the fact that they ended it right before we were about to get the game that actually explains what the protagonist is.
I get it that on a monetary level it's basically suicide, because these are still products that need to be sold and gain a profit about it. But at some point you need to wonder what kind of balancing you want to do between telling a story and actually selling a product instead.
That is true.
Honestly, I think Mark Cerny would be better trying something different than Heck, honestly, because I feel like if Mark Cerny is going to get back into game development again and not just make hardware, I would definitely like him to just take the hint and just try doing something better, because I feel like Knack is just it's just a no-way streak. Like this thing this thing is just bad and doesn't really. Well, I feel like he'll be much better just trying something different, like making it a different type, a more straightforward platformer for one.
I mean, I guess again, what I do get that I guess the IP can still be done by someone else instead of him.
In fact, come
I
to think
guess,
of it,
but at the
Knack
same
2
time-
was more so his insistence and more the insistence of Japan Studio just because they really wanted something
to do
to
something to stay alive.
So,
yeah.
like, to Mark Cerny's
also-
credit, it wasn't like he didn't get the hint. It was more so he went, oh, okay, you guys want to make Knack 2? Let's make Knack 2.
I mean, personally, I'll take another Astrobot game, which, according to some sources, it seems like Team Azobi's working
I
on
mean,
another
why
one.
not both at this point?
I mean,
I
yeah.
guess, but
Okay,
Like
yeah.
again, that's also about managing. Like, look at a company like Square Enix is actually managing to have both big budgeted AAA titles and a lot of other re-releases and relatively minor titles at the same time right now. Sure, we have to see if that actually is paying off or not. But it's more commendable to me than just I mean, not to do much. Which is, like I said, it's basically the diametral opposite problems that Sony and Microsoft are having. Microsoft is doing a lot of, low-budgeted stuff that is not paying off, while Sony instead is focusing on very big, costly games, that are sure spectacular, but because of that, they are not as much in quantity, and they are basically big gambles, meaning that something has to be left behind, and you're not sure if you're gonna strike or not. Again, Helldivers has been a positive example of that. So the ideal outcome would be to try having something that combines the two, kind of like what Nintendo instead is doing when you get down to it.
Yeah, like, I will say this, for all Nintendo's faults, they seem to know the idea of balance. You got your big budget, you got your smaller budget, you got your mid-budget games. Basically, they all pretty much measure which game gets this much resources, because they know...
They still have, unfortunately, a lot of IPs left behind, and sure, some stuff has been referenced recently or genuinely had a new entry, but unfortunately, there's only so much they can do, and I guess because now they only have technically one console instead of two, because having the 3DS back then also did help in distributing IPs. Having just around one console has cut a lot of what they wanted to do.
In regards to, like, a potential Knack 3, I wouldn't mind it, per se, for two reasons. One, yeah, might as well just finish up the story while you're at it, guys. And two, maybe they could make something good of Knack. Because, let's be honest, Knack always did have good potential with the concept and idea and stuff. And to give Knack 2 credit, there were aspects that they improved on. Now, granted, a few of those aspects were stuff that should have been in the first game from the get-go, but they were learning.
Just to mention, because it was happening right now, technically we secured Malikov and everything, but there's still some stuff missing, and this is why the level is not over yet. We're gonna mention now.
I'm fine, thank you. Have you retrieved the viral inhibitor?
Those are important because the subjects of the Sentinel program do require regular shots in order to actually relapse into the Chimera virus.
Which means without them, the war could be lost.
Not just that, they can become worse, as a result. But so, they understand the important actually go. See what I mean? Again, Hale's character is also improved, even with simple things. Just with this, Malikov says, we cannot actually allow more soldiers to go, but the samples need to be retrieved. Hale immediately, in an ironically tone, says, don't worry, I will actually get them. So, again, there is stuff that is an improvement compared to the first game. This game where Hale was just really a slab of meat. Also, the Titans have a bit of a makeover. Look a lot like the Krogans from Mass Effect now. They still have the location-based damage, but they're more bastard right now. The game suggests you to use the Lark, but I think the bullseye is actually more effective with them. They're also very much more precise, so watch out.
It looks like a mutated Battletoad.
Radical, dude.
And damaging them makes them glow yellow.
Those are the exhaust port, the cooling system. And without that, like I said, it explodes into glorious jibs. So here's the thing, however, I was actually here gloating, loving the fact that it's frozen in chunks. I think it's about to happen now. I didn't notice that there's actually another one coming.
Well, damn.
So here's the thing, however. It kills me. Unfortunately. But when I reloaded, this is actually only the first one. When I reloaded and actually killed the first one, the other one did not show up. So I do wonder, was that a glitch that respawned the first Titan again accidentally previously? I don't remember even during the first time I played there were 2 Titans instead or not.
It would be weird for them to just launch 2 Titans on you this early into the game.
It's only nowadays I'm noticing, damn, these PS3 games are really held together by duct tape a lot of the time.
Remember, Dweebs, the architecture of the console was already weird enough, so it's already a miracle that these things were... It's one of those reasons why... thanks, game, I don't need it. It's one of the reasons why remasters from these are technically a little cumbersome, and sometimes it's actually better to just remake the game from the ground up.
I bet you when we finally get Metal Gear Solid 4, I wouldn't be surprised if that re-release is just essentially a glorified remake.
It's also one of the reasons why emulation on PS3 is still in a, not dubious, but, not as perfect state as we wanted it to be.
Well, depends on what game you're playing. Because there's plenty of games, like I've demonstrated myself.
Well, you already mentioned specifically for the first... You mentioned during the recording of the commentary of the first game that this series in particular is difficult to emulate.
Yes, that is true. But at the same time, but like I said, it depends on which game you're talking about. Because Heavenly Sword runs flawlessly on our PS3.
Isn't Heavenly Sword one of the later PS3 games?
Earlier, actually.
Earlier, actually.
Huh.
And so is Resistance 1.
I need to actually mention
it
this.
It depends on the game. It's a game by game basis, basically.
I don't know who this voice actor is. Unfortunately, there are no subtitles. Starting with this, you get this subplot of when you get too close to a radio, you will get this subplot of this radio DJ, which is stuck in his registration recording room, and he's trying to narrate things as they're going on. Unfortunately, again, there are no subs for this.
I'm guessing that's as loud as the voice can sound.
I will need to get close to a radio in order for it to be louder.
Oh, okay, proximity.
Mm-hmm. This actual particular, radio host became a sort of an ensemble dark horse to the point where, the character was technically brought back as he was relevant to the plot for the PS Vita title, complete with having the same voice actor. So that's pretty cute.
I was wondering if they even brought him on as a multiplayer character.
No, because it's just mostly, a speaker kind of guy. I think that because again, I haven't tried, but I think the voice announcer for the multiplayer is David Kay still himself, not as Hale, but just, in a generic tone, because one of the things that Resident Evil 3 has for its bonus video is a set of voice acting bloopers. Yes, they have that, that's pretty cute. And one of them is for the multiplayer announcer, which I think is David Kay.
Neat.
Alright.
Did they do the Pixar thing where they even animate some of the bloopers?
For the voice acting bloopers, no, but they do have a set of, animation reel for stuff that was cut away and was, showcased in a peculiar manner. Just say, but you will see. For the time being, the Rossmore, designed and engineered by Allied forces in Britain, the Rossmore 258 combat shotgun is adapted close quarter warfare. This pump-action assault weapon fires 12-gauge slugs at extremely high velocities, perforating anyone or anything within range. Press R1 for a single shot, or R2 for a deadlier double-barrel fire. Again, just like in the first game. A lot of the weapons return, not all of them, unfortunately. Most of the New Game Plus weapons are not here. Actually, I don't think any of them return, which is kind of a shame. But like I said, you do get a couple of new toys which are cute enough. It's just a matter of, a lot of stuff gets, left behind, unfortunately. Oh, you piece of shit, again with this?
That's cheap.
Yes,
Pedro.
To be fair, like, when you take a look at God of War 3 Remastered, Last of Us Part 1 Remastered, and the David Cage Duology Remastered, those remasters on the PS4 look just fine. So I feel like remasters on the PS3 games can be handled just fine.
I mean, those.
There you go. Those are the inhibitors.
I mean, yes, the remasters are good. It's about of emulating, though. Like, it turns out a lot of remasters, quote unquote, turn out to have been heavily reworked.
Again, I'm pretty sure still a lot of titles are, might have still an architecture that needed more work than others. That's what I mean.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, it also depends on the. Because one thing is emulation, like Joe was saying, because when you're porting a game, you have the source code, means you can very easily port the source code to a different architecture. When you have a source code of a game, it's far easier to handle things. Whereas the reason it's such a problem for emulation is because obviously you have to emulate the game as it is, and like there's no. That's why you can. That's why a lot of people will tell you that the best way to play Jak and Daxter right now is through the PC, the compilations by the fans, because they reverse engineer those games into source code that runs impeccably on a PC. You can even run it on a toaster and everything. So.
There you go.
Well, I'm pretty confident Konami. I mean, unless they're even more incompetent than I gave them credit for, I'm pretty confident they still have the source code for Metal Gear Solid 4.
Silent Hill remasters.
Yeah, I was about to say they did lost the one for Silent Hill 2 and 3 at least.
That is true, and Bluepoint as a result had to reverse not Bluepoint. And the developers apparently had to reverse engineer the original games, apparently, but they
which also meant having to redo a lot of texture, including writing the fucking signs with Comic Sans.
Theo's favorite font.
It's similar to also what happened with the Final Fantasy X HD remaster, where they lost the source, half of the source code or whatever it was, and as a result, the models from the original PS2 version that were more expressive were lost. And as a result, the HD version only has the less expressive models. It would be like if Kingdom Hearts 1.5 HD remix had only the less expressive models all the time.
And then there was that weird thing done with
that's what happened. It's kind of similar because remember the source code for the first game was lost, and as such, instead they had to work with the Kingdom Hearts 3D models.
Yeah, there's a big difference between the two too. For Final Fantasy X and X-2, they gave it to a Chinese developer. Whereas the actual Kingdom Hearts Osaka team actually did those ports themselves, so they actually got people who actually knew these games to begin with.
And then there was that weird thing with the Final Fantasy IX remaster, where the models got updated and looked great, but the backgrounds were still PlayStation era.
Good. Scramble ground to where missile units. We'll need to bring that ship down.
Copy that. We're sending a VTOL to your position.
Time to have our final boss of the San Francisco section. It's time to finish off the Leviathan.
Makes sense.
Again,
the base is sinking.
As a boss fight, it's fine. I've seen better, but it's actually a step up compared to the previous game, so I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it actually feels like a boss fight. Like, again, not
basically watch which tentacle is doing, and because it's easy to telegraph and move it into the opposite direction. And again, you're also seeing in terms of presentation that when it comes to the color palette, orange and brown are the more dominant. Again, another thing they got done because of Modern Warfare's popularity.
Anyway, not to diss the first game, but it did that thing I don't care for in shooter games, and like, didn't really give a proper boss fight. It's more like, hey, clear out this wave of mooks, or get this cutscene to take out this bigger enemy more often than an actual boss fight. So this is definitely an improvement.
Go on,
Open
Pedro, in the
wide.
meantime.
No, see the thing is, like I was saying, like that's actually another thing that contributed to the long development cycle of Kingdom Hearts 3. The fact that, I mean, although I appreciate not trusting Kingdom Hearts to someone outside of his own team. So I do, and we did, and as a result, the HD collections are high quality material. So
well,
I guess
like I said,
I guess I shouldn't complain.
I think the PS3, the original 2.5, PS3 version had some sort of problem depending on what kind of television it used, because I distinctly remember by Sleep to be not very well optimized, as in a lot of cutscenes had audio sync and the frame rate was a bit jittery in places.
I guess I never had issues. And
The PS4 version, the PS4 versions obviously do work enough. I was talking about the original PS3 edition.
I platinumed both games on the PS3 still, and honestly, I
He said the
never had any trouble
PSP
with the
version.
No, Joe. I talk about the let me be
PS3.
specific. The Bird by Sleep section in the 2.5 collection of the PS3 version.
Yeah, because the 2.5 and 1.5 were originally PS3 games before they came to other platforms.
And suck my dick, I don't have a one-liner, sorry.
Try not to drown in your ambitions.
Yeah, I suppose.
Lieutenant, we have orders to take you north. There's a ground convoy waiting.
What if I say no?
Well, we don't really have a choice, Blibs. Never a dull moment in the SRPA.
Yeah,
Remember, the United States are being invaded. We don't have much time to dilly-dally.
Also, Lieutenant, moving on up in the world, are you, Hale?
I think this was his original rank. But basically because of his heroic feats, including the 2-year gap thing, he actually managed to keep it.
Like you mentioned, he does seem to be talking more and actually holding more of a conversation, which is leaps and bounds above what he did in the first
even
game.
in terms of personality, this Hale, instead of just, being stoic, grumpy, and just doing things without having to say anything, he seems to be more prone to action and willing to help others. So he's a bit more heroic. So there is that. More direct heroic. Anyway, tune in for the next part where we go to help that convoy that was mentioned. See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.